it's always a moment that I think culturally in the US, we always stop and think about what we're grateful for, what we're thankful for. And this is a great moment for us to practice this. Um, as I wait for my companion, I shall continue to talk. Um, Gratitude is something you can practice every day. We can teach it to children. Um, and my voice is not loud enough. I'm being told in the back for filming. Yes, okay. Gratitude. It is an experience, and it is something to be experienced. You can read about it, you can study it, listen to an audiobook or a podcast, but if we do not physically put it into action, meaning whether we're writing it, whether we're speaking it, and whether we're expressing it, doesn't quite have the same value. So, with that being said, I wanted to open up this moment and have everybody in the room to say one thing that they're grateful for. I mean, you're probably, hopefully, grateful for many things, but let's just go around the room and just say one thing that you're grateful for. It can be anything. It can be, I'm grateful that there was a giant that just opened up down where I live because it facilitates my life.
So start, Grace.
Or
I'm grateful for health. I'm grateful for all you guys.
okay.
I'm grateful for having Spiritism in my life.
I'm grateful for my loved ones.
I'm grateful for my loved ones and health.
Grateful for this reincarnation.
Nice.
I'm grateful for being here.
Grateful to God above and all the doctors.
I'm grateful for my life.
Alba.
I'm grateful for the new life of Rafael.
Thank you.
I'm grateful for all the events that make us go forward.
I'm grateful for God to take care of my family in Brazil.
Both for my family in Brazil, and I'm grateful for being here, living here now.
Laura, thank you, Laura. It's very hard to choose one, but I think the sense that we have one another, that we can count with one another, that we have support of one another, that we have this place, that we can come here and exercise our spirituality, that's I'm grateful. How about you, Kirsten?
I'm just grateful for this day, to be here, standing before you, and that I can talk and walk and breathe. I'm grateful for that. But gratitude over the years, and you can search it on the internet or do an in-depth study, I mean, it definitely does warrant more than just an evening for an hour of your time. Something to be studied your entire life, something to be practiced every day if possible. If not maybe weekly or quarterly or however you want to space it out in your life. But we can find so many definitions for what gratitude means. I mean, gratitude coming from the Latin gratis, meaning grateful, or gratia, meaning grace, and it was noted to be first used in 1523, meaning the state of being grateful and thankfulness. Joanna DeAngelis, in the book The Psychology of Gratitude, defines it as retribution for goodness or favor that one incurs, form of restitution, at least in part, instinct of self-preservation stimulated towards pleasure, basic gratitude. So she kind of gives sort of two definitions in a sense. A definition where we might be more familiar with, something where, I do something and I get something back, something immediate. That's sort of on the evolutionary scale for us at different points in our evolution. Gratitude means something different for us. We were just having this discussion, this online meeting recently, where some of the people were discussing this very thing about gratitude, that they were admitting that they still feel the need for others to say to them, thank you, to express gratitude to them. So that's still a very basic level of our understanding, because ideally the evolved gratitude is much more deeper. It's much more significant sentiment, as Joanna shares. It's not limited to casual reward mechanism, and it has a psychotherapeutic character to it. I would say, or we would say, that to reach this level, we have to really evolve a little bit more to understand, or perhaps for some of us it might be more difficult, because most of us have already reached the point where we will give without expecting anything in return. But a lot of us maintain friendships, relationships, because those people can give us something. It's not often that we find people that can just give or have relationships where they can't get anything back from that person. And perhaps in another talk we could discuss how some of that is important in our lives in terms of evolution, but because we all learn from one another. But ideally, this is the kind of gratitude that we are giving. It's something much more significant, something deeper. And it actually, and we're going to talk about the science behind gratitude, and I know we shared it here before, but the science behind it is well, it's very real and it's legitimate, that when we express gratitude, whether it's through writing or through our actions or through speaking, it has this psychotherapeutic characteristic to it. It is very healing and beneficial for everyone who practices it. And Joanna says in Psychology of Gratitude that all who are grateful, who truly understand the significance of real gratitude, enjoy physical, emotional, and psychological health, content in sharing things. Gratitude is like anything else. You have to form a habit of doing it. Most of us have bad habits of certain thinking, and you might not realize it until something happens. I'll tell you, for instance, I had a patient many years ago, and I never forgot her. She always is like ingrained in the back of my mind. She's probably in her 70s or 80s. She was a small, frail African-American woman. I took care of her in the ICU. Actually, she was what we call all the other floors were already to capacity. So only reason she came to the ICU is because she needed a bed. Because other than that, she really didn't need to be in the ICU. So I met her, and my first impression of her is when I walked into the room, she was knitting at her bedside in her hospital gown. And then I walked back out because I thought I went to the wrong room, because the woman I was looking for was a woman with stage 4 breast cancer with metastasis to the bone and brain. So I walked back out as a knee-jerk reaction, thinking, oh, I'm in the wrong room. So then I look at her room number, and I go, no, this is the right person. So I go in, I confirm her name, date of birth, the whole thing. And she says, yes, that's me. And then as I was trying to get myself together, because I was just in such shock, and seeing her, she starts singing a hymn just in front of me, just didn't even care. So I was so entranced by her energy. Even walking into the room, it was like her whole being just took up that room, her love and inner peace. So I began just having a conversation with her. I was so impressed with her amount of faith in life and her love for her, just life in general. And so I asked her, I said, if you don't mind me asking, I'm looking at your paperwork, and some people might be upset at their health status if they were you, but you seem such in peace that even when I walked into your hospital room, I felt like this shower of peace come over me. Like, what do you do? And she said, I bless everything that God brings to my life. Life is a blessing. And, and she starts talking about her church and how active she is and how much she works in charity work. And her essence has always stayed with me. The image of her is really burned into my brain. And I always remember her because I think, she had such a gratitude for life, for every moment, for everything, and every interaction. And all the doctors and nurses had with her was amazing. She was a life-changing patient for everyone that encountered her. So that's the idea, right? That hopefully we can be like this woman or this human being wherever we go, no matter what we're going through, no matter what suffering we're enduring, we're trying our best, notwithstanding that life is hard and life can throw us curveballs and it can be really difficult. But life is a process, and our experiences are meant to help us to grow and to learn. But we wanted to talk a little bit also about the science behind all of this, because there really is a tremendous amount of research, neuroscience behind gratitude.
Yes, that's true. And talking about gratitude, we learned that is one of the virtues that we need to, acquire. I mean, we already have this virtues, but as we talk about this process of evolution that we go through until we become a perfect beings, main reincarnation from now, it is important that we have the reference. And the reference of gratitude and all the virtue that we have discussed here is the master, is the guiding model. So we already have in front of us, or history has shown us, that we don't need to make things complicated. We just need to imitate. And it's a process. It is a process. And if we have to get in a practical way and define gratitude, so we could say that gratitude is simultaneously these three things: emotion, because we experience an emotion; a sentiment, especially for those that are grateful. This translates to a behavior, and there is a little bit of rational conscience, because there is a cognitive component on this. I mean, so when we are gratitude, we can be grateful, but also we can receive this energy. And I think what Kirsten mentioned here and defined the three levels of gratitude, the two, sometimes the word gratitude is misused. Like, when we say, how are you? But in fact, we don't know, we don't have time to stop and really listen to you. I mean, we see this all the time. People like, thank you. Do you mean when we say thank you? It's just like became a habit, became mechanic. But so we need to really feel. So gratitude, we need to translate this feeling, the emotion, to the energetic approach. So there is some people that we come close to them, we feel this gratitude. We feel this energy that emanates from the person. So, but again, don't be sad if we don't have this, because it's a process. We just acquire this gratitude, the gratitude that you mentioned about, especially about the patient that you mentioned, when we exercise the gratitude. So when we look at this three component, the emotion, the sentiment, and the behavior, the emotion, we already discussed it here. Emotion is the physiological approach that we have. For example, when we get we get a promotion. So we feel that boost of happiness. That is like an episode. But after a couple weeks, couple months, that promotion is not more like so important for us. So we are now aimed the follow promotion. So sentiment is something more deep that we feel is the feeling that we have when we are true grateful. And the behavior is the result, how we express this. Sometimes we see in the body language of someone when we give a gift, or when we tell something that is nice, a smile, or just a word like, you look so beautiful today, darling. So this is something that make an impact, So it is, get all these things together, it is a recognition of elements of values in our lives. So, and then we for example, an achievement can be any achievement in our life that we consider that, okay, this is really great thing that happened. Could be, if we talk about the physical body, and we overcome a disease, and events in general, But here there is something important. When we look at this, so majority of us, or the people that live in this planet, we have this gratitude level, but in a passive way. What means in a passive way? Means that we experience this episodically, and then the days go over, and they kind of like fade out, fade in, and anything negative that comes, we are incapable to remember the gratitudes that we have in life. The fact that we are alive, the fact that, we can walk. So this is things that we should be grateful every day. But if a negative thing happens in our life, we completely forgot all the positive things that we already acquired and we should be grateful. But can you press one more? But what we aim to is to have an active gratitude. What is mean active gratitude? Is be great every single day, no matter what. If something happens in your life, if someone stolen your car, you get upset, but at least you say, I'm grateful, at least I'm alive. You know what I mean? But some people, become very upset that forget all the gratefulness that she or he has received. So I think when we put this in perspective, then the word gratitude becomes meaningful. It's not like just a protocol, just saying, I need to give this, but in fact I don't generate the energy, but it's just a social protocol. You know what I mean? So I think it is a process that we should recognize that we are work on that, but as we learn with those that really show to us what it is to be grateful, we are in good hands, because now we have models in our society that we can imitate.
And I think also, just on a flip side, Daniel, I think in our Western culture, we don't necessarily support this kind of behavior in the workplace necessarily, unless we have models or we have bosses or we have people that really are proactive in the workplace. Having worked at a particular place for quite a while now, you can kind of see how certain attitudes really affect other people. The perfect reading that Aloysio did today from Happy Life, that we are always an example for someone. So I know that it might seem counterintuitive when we're going into our workplace, to express gratitude. People might think you're strange, like, why is she acting like that? I remember working with this one nurse who I'm still friends with to this day. She seemed, and she still seems, like to be such a happy person, always expressing gratitude. And I remember when I used to work in the hospital with her, I was shocked when I heard people talking bad about her, calling her fake, and that she wasn't really that happy. She was faking it, and she's probably a terrible person, like these horrible things. I was like, wow, people are just, terrible. Like, so I would always be like, well, she's so nice, and she's so kind, and she's so thoughtful, and patients love her. And anyway, so, it seems almost unbelievable sometimes when people can have expressing gratitude, but don't be afraid to do it. If you have to be the pioneer in your workplace or in your family, you should just do it and begin to practice gratitude. I think it's something really important, and there's something to be said about that, because sometimes it's so easy to just be who everyone else wants us to be. It's much more difficult to be genuine and to make the right decision and to act more correctly. We've shared this research before from this researcher named Dr. Robert Emmons. I believe he's out of UCLA in California. He's done extensive, maybe a few decades worth of study of gratitude. And a couple of things that he found are the following. And one particular research that you can find on his website down below here. Is this, that those who kept a gratitude journal on a weekly basis, exercised more regularly, reported fewer physical symptoms, felt better about their lives as a whole, and were more optimistic about the upcoming week compared to those who recorded hassles or neutral life events. So basically in this particular study, what they had people do is two groups of people. One group who recorded in their journal all negative things, hassles, or just neutral life events, and the other group just recorded everything they were grateful for, and the results were completely different. And one was good, one was bad, obviously. Also, another study that Emmons took part in regards to children is children who practice grateful thinking have more positive attitudes towards school and their families, and more in general likely to report having helped someone with a personal problem or having offered emotional support to another. So there's an immense amount of science behind this, and there's only goodness and only good things come out of practicing gratitude. And I believe that it's something we're going to touch on a little bit later today, but I know that we've all taken a second here before we started to express our gratitude, but it's actually really important that if you can, get a journal. You don't have to get one of those fancy journals from Hobby Lobby or I'm trying to think of the other stores that's out there. There's so many really fancy journals. You can go to the dollar store, get a marble copybook for $1, and just start journaling just what you're grateful for, whether it's just a few things every day. It's really important.
And mention about the journaling is important because this is research that already proved that when we write, like when we put in a paper, not typing, because they already compare people that type and people that write, make a more deep impact in our brain than if you just say or if you just type positive things. So it's important that we get a paper and write. So this is related to a modal system that for some reason activate areas in our brain that will have to create this deep impact of changing. So this go to positive, but also go to the negative, because the brain is the machine that the spirit commands. So whatever our mind is, if we keep saying every day, "Oh, I'm nothing, nobody likes me, who am I?" Okay, you are a child of God. We are a child of God. So no matter what happens outside, there is a great power in the universe that is responsible for ourselves and for everybody. So it is important that we make this movement, because it's so easy for us to fall in the negative side. Yeah. It's so easy to say, "Oh, who am I?"
Or I'm not worthy.
I have this. I'm not worthy. I have this problem. No. Even though we feel a little bit insecurity because, of course, we are not so all powerful. So we are in the process of learning. We need to give it a chance, and we're gonna surprise ourselves.
And also, I think it's very easy. We tend to compare ourselves to other people, and I always remind anyone around me to say that comparison is death. Because once you compare yourself to someone else, you're setting yourself up for a disaster because you are you and they are them, and that's just how it is. We're all different people. We're at different levels. So, someone might have achieved success or something that you might want, but that's their journey. We don't truly know people's struggles, when they're home by themselves, what they're going through. On paper, they might look great, or on social media, on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, they might look, wow, their life is fantastic, but we don't know their lives. So it's best that we just try to focus on ourselves in a positive sense and have positive self-talk. And that's another reason why it's really good to sit down and do gratitude journal, because you're going to begin to have a lot more positive thinking in general. I also wanted to talk about someone that I think you may or may not know who this is, Saint Francis of Assisi. I think most of us know who he is. Francis of Assisi, lived in the 15th century. He founded the 12th century. He founded the Franciscan order. He was a monk. He lived in Italy. He was this great soul. He was canonized. I don't know how long after his death, or maybe it was before. But he was this great model for humanity because he was loving, he was kind. And he's most known for loving the animals and nature and being in touch with just everything around him. And Joanna DeAngelis uses him as a model and guide. Sorry for the crying baby there in the background. Joanna DeAngelis, who is the spirit mentor of Givaldo Franco, she uses St. Francis of Assisi because she refers to him as being someone who was very enchanted with life, who would appreciate life so tremendously, every little thing. So she, in the book, The Psychology of Gratitude, in the book, The Psychology of Gratitude, she encourages us to ask ourselves, are we enchanted with life? Meaning, do we appreciate all the little things about life? Are we appreciative of just being able to get up in the morning and have our parents there? There was some movie, I forget which movie it was. It was a while ago. It was probably an old movie from the 80s. And this particular person had dreamt that she had lost her parents, but then when she woke up, her parents were alive. So she was so grateful. And that rest of that day in her life, every moment she had with them, it was something beautiful. And the rest of her life just changed because she appreciated everything. And sometimes it's hard to do because sometimes we go through a lot of, hardships and struggles and things, and it just kind of shifts our mind to be more negative. But in reality, if we can look at this picture, it's something for us to really look up to, because St. Francis had a very challenging life. He didn't have an easy life. Finding the Franciscan order was not an easy feat for him, and he went through a lot of troubles and a lot of issues. But every challenge that he came across or faced, he faced it with a lot of faith and a lot of courage, and still joy, because we may be at the level where, okay, I can be courageous, I can face this, but I'm still not yet joyful. And that's okay. Joanna DeAngelis, the great psychologist, teaches us, to have self-forgiveness, to be patient with ourselves, to know that we're still learning, we're still growing, but we're worthy of joy and of happiness. And she shares something in the book, The Psychology of Gratitude. Legitimate gratitude demands that individuals be possessed of this inner sentiment of enchantment for life, the sweet rapture that makes life precious under any condition by which it manifests, so that they may understand the magic of existence in realizing the gifts that multiply in countless expressions of exchange. We can look at this picture and think, wow, that's probably how St. Francis felt. It's not often we ever get to meet someone who kind of embodies that. My patient, whenever I read this, reminds me of her, because she seemed to be enchanted with life, with every aspect of life, despite, for her, what she was enduring was just a thing. It was just a part of her life, and God had a big plan for her, and that was it. But that, I believe, she was in her 80s. She had probably spent her whole life being that way, her whole life understanding and having a very deep spiritual understanding. So we might look at people like that and think, that's just not me in this life. It's just not going to happen. Well, we need to start taking the steps to reach there. I follow this girl on Instagram, and her Instagram name was Fat Girl Fed Up, and she was really inspiring because she was 300 pounds, and that was just her name. I know it's different, but that was her name. And she was really inspiring because she lost all this weight on her own without doing any type of surgery, without just day to day, going to the gym every day, and some days she'd fail at it, and other days she'd be fantastic at it. But she was always just constantly persevering, doing what she needed to do, and never gave up. And that is just something really inspiring for us to look at. And she just really appreciated every step of the way. So we can look at St. Francis and kind of see the same kind of person, someone who was persevering no matter how hard the struggle was. So also just some take-home tips for us, some things that we can do day to day. At the end of every day, write down 3 things you are grateful for. And it's really important to write down 3 things with your 3 whys. Because it's one thing to say, why am I grateful? Or it's one thing to say 3 things you're grateful for, but to add on the why I'm grateful for those 3 things really hits home and touches us and brings out something more profound within us. So it's really important for us to think about that as we're jotting down our 3 things we're grateful for. We're also jotting down why we are coincidentally also grateful for those 3 things. It's important for us to really deepen our gratitude that way so it can touch us on a much more deeper and profound level. So it's something for us to think about. So there are other aspects, such as if you're grateful for your health, well, why do you feel grateful for your health? I'm grateful for my health because it allows me to be here in this moment. Or I'm grateful for my mother. And why am I grateful for my mother? Well, because I lost my father last year. And I'm really much more appreciative of having a parent, my last parent here. And I'm grateful for my coworkers because they are really positive and uplifting. So just a couple other things to keep in mind as well. Is just to keep a daily journal of these things that you are thankful for. And it's best to do those things early in the morning or directly before you go to bed. And it's really important to make this a practice, and that it's, every day we try to do this. And it's also equally as important to tell your spouse or a partner how grateful you are of them on a daily basis. And there was this, I believe he was some sort of psychologist back in the 80s, I believe it was. My mother really liked him a lot. His name was Dr. Gary Smiley. I'm not even sure if he's still alive. But he was one of the ones at that time saying to practice this act of telling your loved ones how much you appreciate them. Also, something else to help us with setting more of a positive tone and teaching us how to love ourselves more is this looking in the mirror and saying to yourself, I love you, you're beautiful. I know it's a little bit strange sometimes to do that, but we should get into the habit of doing that. And even though it might seem strange at first, it's something we really should be practicing. Whether you're brushing your teeth and you're looking yourself in the mirror, and you might begin to think negative thoughts automatically, like, oh gosh, I don't look good. Oh gosh, I look fat, or oh gosh, this or that. But in reality, we should really try to look at ourselves and say something positive. Oftentimes women, we are guilty of that, of demeaning ourselves. And sometimes it becomes such a habit. Sometimes we don't even like looking in the mirror anymore. But we really need to start these more positive habits in our lives. And it's just something really positive for us to do. So with all of these things together, having the journal and sharing what you're grateful for, your 3 things you're grateful for, and your 3 whys as well is really, really important. So something else before we go on, I wanted to play something for you. And it is a video about having to do with gratitude. And I'll play it here just in a second for you. And it's a really inspiring video. Here we go, 1 second. Let me pull it up. And it is from this particular guy. You can find him on YouTube, on TED Talks. His name is Louis Schwartzberg, probably saying his name wrong. He was 30 years. He was a photographer of nature, specifically of time lapse of like nature, flowers. So the first 5 minutes or so are him talking, but the other rest of the video, which is short, is pretty moving. So I just wanted to play this for you, and it's really beautiful. And let me just get this for you here real quick. Oh, now just turn back on. So sorry. Well, is what it is. But it actually it's dying. So here is this video. Did you get the light? Thank you.
You think this is just another day in your life? It's not just another day. It's the one day that is given to you today. It's given to you. It's a gift. It's the only gift that you have right now, and the only appropriate response is gratefulness. If you do nothing else but to cultivate that response to the great gift that this unique day is, if you learn to respond as if it were the first day in your life and the very last day, then you will have spent this day very well. Begin by opening your eyes and be surprised that you have eyes you can open. That incredible array of colors that is constantly offered to us for pure enjoyment. Look at the sky. We so rarely look at the sky. We so rarely note how different it is from moment to moment with clouds coming and going. We just think of the weather, and even of the weather we don't think of all the many nuances of weather. We just think of good weather and bad weather. This day, right now, is unique weather. Maybe a kind that will never exactly in that form come again. The formation of clouds in the sky will never be the same that is right now. Open your eyes, look at that. Look at the faces of people whom you meet. Each one has an incredible story behind their face. A story that you could never fully fathom. Not only their own story, but the story of their ancestors. We all go back so far. And in this present moment, on this day, all the people you meet, all that life from generations and from so many places all over the world, flows together and meets you here like a life-giving water if you only open your heart and drink. Open your heart to the incredible gifts that civilization gives to us. You flip a switch and there is electric light. You turn a faucet and there is warm water and cold water. And drinkable water. It's a gift that millions and millions in the world will never experience. So these are just a few of an enormous number of gifts to which we can open your heart. And so I wish you that you will open your heart to all these blessings and let them flow through you. That everyone whom you will meet on this day will be blessed by you. Just by your eyes, by your smile, by your touch, just by your presence. Let the gratefulness overflow into blessing all around you. And then it will really be a good day.
So we wanted to end with that. We do recommend you to go on the TED Talk. If you want, we can email it to you later. It's actually, the first 4 or 5 minutes are actually really interesting as well when he talks a little bit about his life. But we just wanted to share this few ideas about gratitude and thankfulness. And I know we have some time. If anyone wants to open up and talk more about what they're grateful for, or if you have questions or just comments about what you've heard, whether through the video or anything else. Also, just as an FYI, for any of you who have Amazon Prime, you have access to Prime Video. They have really good, and that's what we are playing. If you walked in here early enough, we are playing that soft music with the affirmations that was streaming from Prime Video. It's a bunch of videos with positive affirmations about gratitude. It's very cool for those of you who might be interested in watching something like that. So I'm going to open up if anyone has any questions or comments they want to make. Now would be the time. Yes, go.
Thank you so much for reminding us about how good it is to feel, to have this sentiment of gratitude. So I was wondering, when I am able to feel grateful, that means I'm allowing the kindness of the other people's acts or for the environment, to affect me positively. So I'm in a state to absorb. So I open. But I want to flip the opposite, the antithesis of gratitude. People, we, in some instances, not that we are ungrateful, because sometimes when we consciously ungrateful, we have other sentiments there. We're angry, we feel that the life is not just, but just thinking that we didn't allow the gratitude feeling or lack of gratitude, even unconscious. Why is that? It seems to me so sad that you don't take advantage of being open to this kindness that the nature, the environment, and the people are giving to us. So what is that? Because we have these states of lack of gratitude.
Yes, that's a good point, Yasko. I believe because we are creatures of habit. So if we have formed the habit over many lifetimes of focusing on the negative or not being open to others' love and kindness, or, forming certain thought patterns that don't facilitate the act of gratitude, then it's going to take a lot of effort for us to change these thought patterns. And even, I'll give you an example of someone that I used to work with. And this particular woman, to everyone else around her, had so much to be grateful for. But every time any of our colleagues would try to talk to her about, look, there's so much you should be grateful for, and there's this and that, and she would say, yes, you're right, but I have this, but there's that. So it always seemed like, overwhelmed by all the negative. Not saying that we don't have a right to feel our feelings, to be frustrated or to be sad about things that happen to us, but the key is that we are able to experience the hardships yet still find gratitude in life, because I think at the end things are hard. I mean, to go through certain things are hard. To lose a parent is hard, and to experience real life can be challenging. But when we look at life in a bigger perspective, which we don't necessarily have the habit of doing, because we, through habit, we're constantly probably even unaware of it, that we're just looking at this as one lifetime, just this moment, just this experience, and that this is going to last forever. But it's a good reminder for ourselves to say, life is infinite. I'm going to have many more lives coming up, many more incarnations. This is small in comparison to all the other experiences I'm going to have or have had. So it becomes an issue where I need to form new habits. I just need to form more positive habits. And it's going to be hard. Joanna, in the book Happy Life, or might be in Recipes of Peace or Child of God, she says that once we begin to work on ourselves, you're going to have people around you, family, friends, that don't like that you're changing because they like you a certain way. Maybe they like you being negative or they like you being at a certain level. But once you start to better yourself and want to be more understanding, more loving, you're going to have what happened to my coworker years ago. People are going to call you a fraud. You're not genuine. You're fake. You're not real. So we're gonna face those things. As strange as that is, it's a paradox, but I guess it's a part of our lives that we experience on this planet still. Miss Alba, could you? Yasko, can you? Oh, you have it already. Perfect.
Hello. Thank you, Kirsten and Daniel, for the talk, and sorry for the background noise. This morning I was talking with a lady. She's a therapist. She's a social worker. One of the things that she advised to her patients is to be grateful. And of course, she recommended to journal the 3 things at the end of the day. Another thing that she's recommending is to stop every 2 or 3 hours during the day. Just stop. Breathe and be grateful. It takes less than 30 seconds, but it helps you to continue through the day. So she gave me the idea that sometimes we are so caught in our routines, in our, I have to do this and that you don't realize it's already 4 or 5 hours that you're not stopping. And since you're a millennium child, wondering there is an app that is going to remind you or something like that, just to stop and be grateful, or just to ring your phone and you read something. I don't know. I'm just wondering here.
I'm sure that there is, in terms of the app. I'm sure that there must be something. There's so many apps out there. There's an app called Headspace. It's really, really good for meditation and things of that nature. Setting your own alarm. I know with my Apple Watch, I think every hour or two, the watch tells me to stop and take deep breaths. And that alone, science has proven to be very beneficial. And I think, Alba, what your friend recommended about stopping every 2 hours to do some deep breathing, maybe some positive affirmations, is also really good. Why? We need to reprogram our brains to think and reset our neural connections to something much more positive. Because for millennium, for years and years and years, we probably have at least a few bad thought patterns. And so we need to reset. In one of Joanna DeAngelis's CDs that we have here, maybe we ran out already, she has a CD called Health, and that's dictated in Greg Stewart's voice. There's a meditation visualization she has that she says that, whether or not we're going through a hard time, it's good for us to get in the habit of reprogramming our mind to think more positively, whether it's meditating at night, journaling with gratitude, because, we've lived many lifetimes. We have negative thought patterns. We just all do. Some less, some a little more, some a lot more, some very, very small. Whatever it is, we're not judging. The point is just to practice it and see how you feel. And recently I saw something online that I started to do. It was a 30-day challenge to meditate for 30 days, morning and night, and begin to notice how you feel. You feel more positive. You feel more lighter. So these are all really positive things, and they're free. In the age of where a lot of things cost so much money, YouTube is a great resource.
Yeah, I want to make a comment as well, so I missed half of the presentation. So I like this thing of the challenge because people create a lot of challenge over there, isn't it? And people start to imitate. I remember there was one a couple years ago about the cold bucket of water.
Challenge, yeah.
I mean, I'm not here to criticize, but I didn't do it. And if this coming back again, I'm not gonna do it because we don't need to do it. But I understand the idea behind is for a good purpose. Why people don't challenge other one to become better, to be more grateful? Why? So we could do this. Let's launch a new challenge here today. So I want to make a comment on Iasko's comment. It's just like um, that sometimes it seems that ungrateful behave is strong than be grateful. And one thing that came to my mind is in the book Nosso Lar. That is, I don't know if you remember when André Luiz was asking the cause of his death. And the mentor, the spiritual mentor, was explained to him that we never imagined that, bad nutrition, and then he moved to angry, all the negative things that we cultivate during our lifetime will be the cause of our death. I think when we realize that our emotions can really speed up our, health, so we're gonna start to think twice. I'm not saying that we're gonna stop to be angry or start to being grateful all the time, but then when we know the end point of this negative emotion, then we think like, okay, I'm not gonna allow myself to cultivate this for hours, days. And some people can really cultivate this negative emotion that they couldn't see any positive side in anything, any situation, because inside of the person, they don't have. We give what we have. If we cultivate negative thoughts, of course, I don't blame people that's negative because the environment, no matter how much we say to the person, look, there is the other side of the situation always. But at the end of the day, it's up to us to make the decision
I think, Dana, that's why it's so good to have the habit of going to, whether it's to your Spiritist center, it's your church or your synagogue. It's so important to have a religious spiritual practice, to have people around you to fellowship, to remind you to be more positive, that because as Aloysio again was reading, we influence one another.
Yes.
So it's so important that we have a support group, if you will, of people that are positive, that believe in goodness and love and a greater power, God, whatever you want to call it. So I think that's why it's also important to have that as well. And even more so to have habits in your home, whether it's you're doing your gospel or your God at home, whether it's you're doing your daily prayer or your gratitude journal or your family meetings where you're discussing things that you're grateful for, or every day at breakfast with your family, or you're just you and your dog or you and your cat, whatever, you're expressing gratitude. You're like, hey, cat, I'm so happy, I'm grateful for you. Because animals and plants, they feel our energy, and animals more than plants have more understanding, obviously, but everything is energy around us, so it's important that we also have those habits as well.
So any other comment? This is the moment to be grateful. Yes, you may, you can.
Yeah, I was just listening before coming here. He's a cardiosurgeon, more specialized in heart failure. And he said that all these, 20 years, 30 years that he's following, are the cause for heart problems. Everybody, of course, smoke, fat, diet, all these things play a role. But by analyzing the community, the Japanese that came from Japan to United States, and there they hardly had cardiorespiratory problems. It was very rare in Japanese. And when they start to live in United States, of course, this rate starts to increase. So he said, well, it's the diet. It's the environment, it's the diet mostly. But no, although this could be one of the factors, but there are other factors. You know what? It's the community. those Japanese families that stay with Japanese community so they could, how to say, exchange better gratitude or better good feelings, so they could feel more accepted, less stress, for instance, too. They were the one that had lower incidence of heart cardiovascular problems than the ones that westernized and they started to be inserted in American community, American group. So he says it's very important the community, the psychosocial lifestyle, be really well in these two areas, psychology and sociology.
No, absolutely. Yasko, you're reminding me of this. One of the classes I took for my undergrad was it was a research class, and we were studying different research, different populations of people, and they were researching health among Hispanics, African Americans, Asians, Caucasians, and the different groups and how their subcultures affected their health. And why they found that impoverished Latinos in comparison to impoverished African Americans did better. Why? Well, they had the same socioeconomic status, but Latinos historically are more supportive of one another, whereas other cultures were not as supportive. And that is what they are calling in research protective factors. So for instance, 20, 30, no, more than that, because that's my age group. 40, 50, 60 years ago, we had communities where, you lived with your parents and your grandparents were nearby, and you had your aunts, you had cousins, so you had family around you. But then there was at some point in our society where it's like, well, we stopped living closer to our grandparents. We started, having a different lifestyle. So now it's like, the latchkey kids where the kids are on their own. We don't have the support system. We don't have the family, or we have, and that's another talk for another day, that the immigrants that come here, we're not having that support system. So we're seeing statistics that are not that great. In part, one of those factors, I agree with you, is community. Again, that's why I say it's good to have your church community, your synagogue community, your Buddhist community, your Spiritist community, because it's the community, it's the fellowship. You feel less alone, you feel more supported. And that's just what it is, because everybody goes through stuff. Everybody does. No matter how old, no matter where you come from, we all need one another. We all need support. And that's something when you work in healthcare that we all, when we die, we all bleed red. At the end, no matter where we come from, and I've taken care of the very rich people and the poorest of the poor, homeless people coming off the street that have no family. And at the end, everybody wants someone to be there with them, to hold their hand, to feel less alone. So in that way, we are the same in humanity. So that's all. I'm so grateful for you all for this moment. And we're going to do a visualization and prepare for the moment of passes.